más y copas de más. Tú no me dejas en paz, de mi mente no te vas. Aunque sé que no debo, ey, pensar en ti, bebé, pero cuando bebo me viene tu nombre, tu cara, tu risa y tu pelo. Ey, dime dónde tú estás, que yo por ti cojo un vuelo. Ya yo nago ni le llego, aunque sé que no debo, ey, pensar en ti, bebé, pero cuando bebo me viene tu nombre, tu cara, tu risa y tu pelo. Ey, dime dónde tú estás, que yo por ti cojo un vuelo. Ya yo nago ni le llego. Ey, no me busques en Instagram, mami, búscame en casa, pa' que veas lo que pasa. Ey, si tú me pruebas te casa, ey, ese cabrón ni te abraza. Y yo loco por tocarte, pero ni me atrevo a testearte. Tú con cualquier outfit la parte, mami, tú eres aparte. Chari tiene un culo bien grande, demasiado grande, y ya lo tengo estudiado, ya mismo me gradúo, y en la cara me lo tatúo. Vi que viste mi story y subiste una pa' mí, yo que me iba a dormir, ey, en la disco había 1000, y yo bailando contigo en mi mente, aunque sé que no debo pensar en ti, bebé, pero cuando bebo me viene tu nombre, tu cara, tu risa y tu pelo. Ey, dime dónde tú estás, que yo por ti cojo un vuelo. Ya yo nago ni le llego. Si me das tu dirección, yo te mando 1000 cartas. Si me das tu cuenta de banco, 1.000.000 de pesos. Todas las noches arrodillado a Dios le rezo, porque antes que se acabe el año tú me des un beso y empezar el 2023 bien cabrón. Contigo hay un blon. Tú te ves asesina con ese man, me mata sin un pistolón. Y yo te compro un Benchi, Gucci y Benchi, un poodle, un Frenchie, el pasto, los monchis. Te canto un mariachi, me convierto en Itachi. Yeah, 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 yeah. Bad Bunny, baby, Bad Bunny, baby, che ho a se cosa città de mo anata toda che doko ni maska che ho a se cosa città de mo anata toda che doko ni maska.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the call. I am so glad that you are all here. My name is Joel, and today I'm with Indigo and Ezra, who are providing tech support and chat support for us today. We know that we're in a really wild, topsy-turvy political moment. You know, we have Build Back Better going on in Congress. We have elections going on throughout the country. But today, at least for me, this call is a bright spot. I'm really excited to formally be announcing that tonight Sunrise Movement is endorsing Jessica Cisneros for Texas's 28th Congressional District. Can we put some exclamation points, fire emojis, whatever emoji you feel in the chat about this endorsement? Come on, let's get those rolling. And exclamation points, emojis, woo, woo, woo. There we go. Awesome, thank you, everybody. On this call, we're gonna not only celebrate this endorsement, we're gonna talk about our plan to win. We're gonna hear from Jessica herself in a moment. And you know, before we get that, I think we really need to get grounded as to why this race is important. Why Jessica's run is not only historic, but will empower our movement to continue consolidating progressive power. So in order to start that, Indigo, I do ask that you play Jessica's announcement video. So sit tight, everybody, and enjoy the video.
They said we had no chance. They said the patrones were just too powerful. They said change was impossible here. But we showed them that the dreams of immigrants, truckers, rancheros, and teachers can be just as powerful as their corporate dollars.
Now we're back to finish what we started, to do what my dad taught me.
Work hard, keep at it, y enseñar que la esperanza nunca muere. Over the past year, our community has suffered through this pandemic, waking up day after day, praying we wouldn't lose another family member or our jobs. And when we thought Congress would be the answer to our prayers, they ignored us. So I did what I knew I could. I kept fighting for South Texas families as a human rights attorney, helping families who couldn't afford lawyers navigate our broken immigration system. So what's Henry Cuellar done in the last year since he got reelected? He introduced anti-immigration bills with Republicans to further separate families. He was the only Democrat to vote in favor of corporate interests over protecting workers and strengthening unions. And he brought unusable, defective COVID-19 tests into Laredo. South Texas deserves a representative that's going to fight for our dreams as hard as we do. For Medicare for all, so families don't have to go to Mexico to afford basic health care. For immigrants' rights, because we don't want a wall or policies that tear our South Texas community apart. For reproductive health care, porque nuestras mamás, nuestras hijas, nuestras hermanas, our friends and family deserve freedom, dignity, and respect. I'm not taking a dime of corporate PAC money, because South Texas families deserve true representation. Mi nombre es Jessica Cisneros. I'm the proud daughter of immigrant farm workers, and I'm running for Congress. I'm ready to finish what we started. Are you? Join us.
Wow, what a video, am I right? I have chills. Every time she says I'm a daughter of farm-working immigrant parents, I get chills. I get chills. Can you put in the chat right now how you are feeling after that video? I see some folks are inspired, are fired up, ready to go. Talking a little bit about what we're going to talk about in a few seconds. I got somebody saying, who's going to join me and donate $5? I mean, hey, let's do it. Beautiful video. Go, go, win. Thank you for running in this race, Jessica. LFG, I'm not going to say what that means. Henry Cuellar can kiss my bleep. Same with Mansion and Cinema. Yes. The cinematography, the script, the candidate, everything. Hype. Yes. Finally, a politician who's like people I know. I think I resonate with a lot of that. I think right now we understand how important it is to back candidates like Jessica. And I think a lot of you are all feeling that tonight. With all the responses that we've gotten in the chat, I think we understand that this launch video sums it up. But before we get into chatting with Jessica, I wanted to share a little bit more about why Sunrise Movement made the decision to endorse Jessica Cisneros and why we're jumping into this race and are endorsing and backing such a bold progressive champion. So for starters, you may know that in 2020, we backed Jessica Cisneros for her bid in Texas 28. And it was actually one of our first endorsements in 2020. And a lot of the reasons that we got involved last time are the same reasons that we're getting involved this time. To start, Jessica is an amazing leader. She's a brazen champion who advocates for her community and would be outright a champion for the progressive changes that we so desperately need in Congress. From fighting for a Green New Deal, Medicare for all, to ending racist policies at the border, which we know Henry Cuellar stands for. Jessica is ready. She's ready to fight for her community. She's ready to fight for the community in South Texas and communities across the country. Now, of course, not only is Jessica an amazing candidate, an amazing person, but she's also running against one of the most corrupt politicians in Congress, Henry Cuellar. We know that Henry Cuellar, a so-called Democrat, has taken over $800,000 from the fossil fuel industry. I mean, I read a t-shirt today that says no more fossil fuel money. And that's because we know that politicians should not be bought. Cuellar is one of the main obstacles in Congress to progressive change. He's anti-choice, he's anti-immigrant, and he does the bidding of the oil industry. Those $800,000 does not come scot-free. And defeating this would mean putting another badass progressive leader in Congress. And it would send a very clear message right to the heart of the Democratic Party. that we are not here to play, that we are here to understand that this is a tough midterm, a tough election cycle, and there's already a public battle of ideas playing out amongst the Democrats about how we respond to this moment, but we know that the choice is crystal clear. It's either the corrupt, incrementalist, status quo politician that will only lead us into further chaos, or a progressive, bold champion that we can choose to fight for our courageous battles, to fight for hopeful action, and to fight for the changes that we need by leaders like Jessica. Winning this primary doesn't only prove that bold progressive change is what the people truly want, but it is an undeniable signal to the rest of the country about what our path forward is like. And I can't stress enough how powerful winning this race will be. So before we move forward, I'd like to welcome Jessica Cisneros herself to the stage so that we can talk a little bit more about what this means to us.
Hi, y'all. Thank you so much. I cannot even begin to express how grateful I am to have Sunrise's endorsement and be the first U.S. House endorsement. It really means a lot because last time around, Sunrise was one of our first partners in our race. Sunrise was one of the first, organizations to believe in our race. And I mentioned this a lot, and thank you, Joel, for explaining, what's at stake here, what we were able to do last time, because I think one of the biggest things that we did, what we're doing last time around is basically asking people to envision the impossible here in South Texas, right? Here, we were going up against a very entrenched incumbent, somebody who had been in office in one capacity or the other longer than I've been alive. And somebody who has a war chest, right? Fueled by fossil fuel money, fueled by the Koch network, any kind of bad guy you can think of, any Republican corporate interests, he received money from them. And we were running a grassroots, people-powered campaign. So to have the vote of confidence from the Sunrise movement, very early on in our campaign, was truly making the difference in terms of like scaffolding or support. And letting people know what this campaign was, what we stood for and what we're standing for today as well. Last time around, it was such a close race. We were able to win 48.2% of the vote. And I was a 26-year-old first-time candidate. When I tell you that learning curve was like huge, it truly was. I never thought I was going to be doing what I did at 26. And neither did my staff, right? Our team was very much composed of people from the district who, just like I, had never seen what a federal congressional race looks like down here in South Texas, because Cuellar had been, unchallenged for such a long time. But together, we made what seemed impossible look possible. We came so close to defeating an entrenched incumbent, kept him at 51.8% of the vote, which is very much unheard of in these parts. We were able to raise $2 million for our race with an average contribution of like $27, $30, which is incredible because that means it's people like us that are backing our campaign. We were able to get, in addition to, progressive organizations like Sunrise, also some electeds, decide to jump into our race because they believed in what we were fighting for. We got the endorsement of people like Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ayanna Pressley, Pramila Jayapal, like the list goes on. Secretary Julian Castro was a huge one because we have a bit of San Antonio in our district. And that was, again, thanks to like all the people that really believed in us from the very beginning, because little by little, we were able to show people that we really had what it takes to win. We are running again for the same reasons, right? We mentioned this at the very beginning of this call. We're running because we believe we deserve better. We're running because we deserve true representation that isn't going to be bought out by corporate interests. We're running because we deserve all kinds of investments in our community that has been, forgotten for so long. We're also running because, as we all know, the last 2 years especially have been so incredibly hard on our communities. All kinds of suffering, a lot of the crises that we were already living through prior to the pandemic, were just so much exacerbated by the pandemic. We got to see so many, especially here in South Texas, a lot of our communities become COVID hotspots that were they were already bad, but they became a lot worse because we didn't have the medical infrastructure here in our district to be able to, be able to attend to all the people that were getting sick from the pandemic. It was such a hard year of loss, not just in jobs and benefits, right? If you had health insurance, you might have lost it because you were laid off from your job, but it was also a lot of loss of life that we had here. And, I think that when you're also talking about, what's at stake, it's like a lot of what we saw in the last, couple of years, but also knowing that all of this is happening in the context of a climate crisis, right? The fact that we're running against big oil's favorite Democrat was also something that was very present in this community, where unfortunately, because there's a lack of investment in job diversity here, one of the very few pathways to the middle class here in South Texas includes oil and gas jobs, right? And because, we have a government that refuses to believe in us and diversify the kinds of jobs that we have here, they're making us dependent on oil and gas, and that's very much by design. Running against, somebody who I mentioned was getting all this money from the fossil fuel industry because Henry Cuellar is one of the top recipients from the oil and gas industry. I mean, it was tough, right? Because again, here you are running a very scrappy grassroots campaign going up against someone who has all this money in their war chest. And especially somebody, I think one of the biggest statements that we did with our campaign, because a lot of people were like, oh, well, she, is running on the Green New Deal and this is Texas, like that's not going to be successful, right? Like, no, we were out there, I think part of the reason why we were so successful is because we were offering a vision. We were giving people a reason to vote. It wasn't just like, oh, we're not Cuellar or we're not Trump. It was like, this is the vision that we have for South Texas. And we didn't shy away from, any hot topic issue. We were unabashedly, progressive. We were unabashedly pro-choice, pro-Medicare for all, pro-Green New Deal. We embraced it because we knew that people are just so ready to invest in a moral way in our community, where we want to get ahead of this transition into renewable energy and what it would mean for South Texas, which means good union jobs, right? In an area where unfortunately we don't have that many pathways to the middle class. And we were able to show that it's not enough to pretend that you want to address the climate crisis when your actions are actually those of a climate denier, like Henry Cuellar. So a lot of the same reasons why we're running this time around, including honoring all the work that people put in last cycle. And that's, a big reason why we came so close to winning. I want to honor all the hard work and commitment that people have, both here on the ground, but also all the allies that we made along the way across the entire nation. Everybody here is, sacrificing something because this is a hard battle, right? For me, it means that just a few, weeks ago, I had to give up my dream job after the pandemic. After the race, I was able to do what I had set out to do after I graduated law school, which was to open up a pro bono office, a legal service immigration office here in Laredo, because we didn't, have that many legal service resources here. So I was able to open up an office that did community lawyering here in Laredo. But when it came down to it, I knew that if I want to be the best advocate for my community, because of all these crises that we're, experiencing, it has to be with bold policy that's gonna actually meet the moment and not just gonna be a temporary fix right now. Whether you're talking about immigration, whether you're talking about healthcare, whether you're talking about the climate crisis, like it has to be through bold policy. And it was also, if I could only tell you the kind of commitment and hope that people have here, and that we're excited to be able to count on so many people across the country and are finally, taking a look to what's happening here in South Texas, because we're at the brink of something very special, right? In an area where, unfortunately, there's kind of very low voter turnout, not a lot of voter enthusiasm, because it's been the same kind of politician that's been running in this area for such a long time. It was amazing to see people, finally feel like they were reflected in this campaign and decide to volunteer and be a part of it because they saw themselves reflected in it. I saw literally as we were knocking on doors last time, there were people who decided to volunteer right then and there and go pick up a stack and go knock on doors as well. It was like a young college student who did that, at that time, a high school student. I got to see people from the colonias who, if you're not familiar with, this area of South Texas, they're unincorporated areas in counties that don't have access to basic things like there's no paved roads, there's no access to water or running water, there's no street lights out there. And to see folks from their drive like half an hour to our campaign headquarters, an older woman who's a grandmother wanting to make sure that she does what she can to leave a better world for her grandchildren, get out there. A 70-year-old woman learned how to phone bank in South Texas and was doing the voter outreach. Was awesome because she had never done that before, but she felt inspired by our campaign. And also one of our fierce volunteers who was out there, we were trying to convince him not to, but he was out there knocking on doors with a broken leg. We were trying to tell him like, Mr. Avelino, it's okay, we can phone bank, we could do this and that. But no, like he was so determined and he's like, I've got my crutches, it's fine, just let me do this. I really want to do this. And he was out there, like the level of commitment here was just unmatched. And again, that was because there were so many people that came together to truly try to fight for this vision that we were fighting for South Texas that unfortunately had been missing for such a long time. I've been all in since the moment I decided to, toss my hat in the ring, like several years ago at this point now. I was 25 years old back in May 2019 when I decided to run for office. And it's one of the most beautiful things has been to know that I'm not alone in this fight. Because if it was just me, it would have been impossible to be able to run such a successful campaign. But it's so much easier when there's so many people next to you, literally and figuratively, right? Who are just as determined to fight for a better future for all of us. I'm not asking y'all, of course, to canvas out there like Mr. Avelino with a broken leg, but I really do appreciate the level of commitment that y'all have to, show up today, and hopefully throughout, the several volunteer events that we're going to have out there, because it really is going to take all of us to truly make a difference. And I know that winning this race against such an entrenched incumbent that has millions of dollars at his disposal is going to mean so much for the people here in South Texas, for the entire state, and just nationally for progressive politics everywhere. So thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate having you in this fight with me. And thank you again to Sunrise for believing in us again and finishing what we started last time.
Yes, thank you so much, Jessica. As we can tell, folks in the chat are fired up and ready to go. If we could just ask you one question, people, last time around, people now are super fired up, excited. What does the path to victory look like, and how can Sunrise Movement support you?
Absolutely. I mean, we have to be aware that we're not going to count on the high voter turnout that we had last time around, right? Like this is a Texas primary, even though it feels like a red to blue, it really is happening in a Texas primary, which for many people don't realize that we have 80 some days to get out the vote, because our election is going to be on March 1st. One of the successful things that we had going for us last time around was the voter outreach that we were actually doing, right? There were so many people in our district that for such a long time, their vote was taken for granted. So many of them didn't even bother to go out there and vote because nobody had asked them to. So I think for us, something that we very much want to continue doing is that voter outreach, that direct voter outreach, whether it be knocking on doors or phone banking, which has been, the returns that we have been seeing in terms of like people deciding to vote for our campaign because we're making the effort to even ask for their vote has been huge. So it's going to be up to us to make sure that we're identifying who those voters are and making sure that they turn out, because this is a midterm election. We have 80 some days to be able to talk to the voters and explain to them what we're running on and why they should vote for our campaign and take a chance with us for better representation in Texas 28. So it's really going to come down to our voter mobilization efforts for sure. Yeah, so somebody's asking what the district looks like. So that our district is very similar to what Texas 28 looked like before. It runs from San Antonio down to my hometown of Laredo, Texas here, and then down to the Rio Grande Valley in Starr County. We now have, in addition to Guadalupe County, which is in the northern part of our district, we also count on Jim Hogg and Duval counties, which weren't a part of our district before. So it pretty much roughly kind of looks the same in terms of like space that it covers, but we do have the addition of 3 additional counties, and then we did lose a few counties as well. We got a bigger part of San Antonio for those people that were asking what parts of San Antonio we got. Last time it was pretty much the outskirts of San Antonio. This time around, it really covers a bigger chunk of, the central downtown area as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jessica. I think we all understand the importance of it. Not only is Jessica an amazing candidate, you heard her story, you heard her talk about why this campaign is so important, but we can't just sit here and talk, right? We have to act. I think it's really, really important for us to understand how important it is. If, we don't show up for Jessica, there won't be a path moving forward. And that's not gonna happen, right? So in the chat, there's an amazing person spamming a link, sunrisemovement.org/sunrise for Jessica. There's phone banks happening Wednesday and Sunday, y'all. We have about 80 days to make this happen. The 50 people in this chat and in this conversation today, you should definitely sign up before you get on this call, number 1, Wednesday and Sundays, don't forget. And number 2, invite 3 friends to phone bank with you, because that vote tripling is gonna happen. We need to get those voter contacts in, as Jessica mentioned. Direct voter contact is the path forward in this race. Wednesday and Sunday. So before you get off this call, I know 8:30 is the time that we're gonna get off here, but before you get off this call, sunrisemovement.org/sunrise for Jessica. It's all in the chat. You literally cannot miss it. Before you jump off this call, it's like your exit ticket. I don't know if you've been in school recently, but for me, it was my exit ticket. Your exit ticket for this call is to sign up for a call, either on Wednesday or Sunday, and you can do that as many times as you want from now until election day. If you've signed up on the link, please put an exclamation point so that we know you've done it. Awesome, thank you so much, Luca. Let's go, Wednesday and Sunday. Everybody has a sign up link. Great. And before we come off tonight, I think, I'm really grateful for everybody's participation. 50 people on the call tonight, but many, many, many more folks are gonna join us for phone banking. Our goal for December is to phone bank 100,000 voters in the district, and it won't be possible without you. So please, please, please join us. Sunrisemovement.org/sunrise for Jessica. I feel like I'm on a television ad, but sunrisemovement.org/sunrise for Jessica. Please sign up if you haven't done so. I want to thank Jessica. I want to thank the team. Regina, I see you and all the hard work that you're doing. And thank you everybody who made it to this call tonight. Remember, sign up, ask 3 friends to join you, and we'll see you shortly on those calls. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night.